It's Blood Plunder week and we have 3 amazing prizes up for grabs. First up, we have 2 2-player starter bundles to get you and a friend out onto the high seas. We then have our grand prize of a galleon and crew for 1 lucky winner. So like the video, don't forget to subscribe and get your comments in for your chance to win on the Beasts of War YouTube, Facebook and our new home OnTableTop.com.
Hello everybody and welcome to No Peace Beyond the Line week here on Beasts of War. I am joined by Mike from Firelock Games and today we're going to be having a bit of a look at the new book that you guys have for Blood Plunder. So it's pretty, I'm going to say that right now.
Thank you, Ab. I'm really happy with how it came out.
Yeah.
It almost killed us, but we got it out. It's here.
Yeah, you were saying on camera, it almost drove you insane. You put way too much in there?
A little bit much, yeah. It's, as if you have the rulebook and you have this, you'll see that there's a gigantic difference in size.
Yeah.
And there's not really many rules in here, so this is mainly factions and new stuff like campaigns, but we'll get into all that in a minute. Right?
Yeah, well, for this week, we are wanting to focus in on what's shiny and new for everybody that are playing their Blood and Plunder games. So, do you want to maybe actually crack open the book for us and start picking out some of the stuff?
Let's do it. All right, so there's our new map. Covers the full, this is basically the full area the game covers. So you can play any kind of conflicts within this area. We've got a faction for it in here somewhere. Depends based on what you want to play.
I see.
So we got contents here. And so obviously we've got all the factions. We've got some new ones, right? So we've got the Dutch, big one we added, as well as the Native Americans. And then the unaligned is now unaligned and peripheral powers. And that's going to run the gamut of a whole bunch of different stuff. Over to characters. Characters is a new thing. They kind of function like commanders, but you can add them into any unit.
Okay.
And it's just basically like heroic kind of guys, and then musicians, standard bearers,
some more flavor.
Specialists on the ship, stuff like that. Just a general reference of all the special rules and equipment that are new to this book, as well as the ones from the old book. A really in-depth ship section, which is something I felt was kind of missing from our first book, so that's in there. Then just some new rules to go along with the new stuff. Most of the stuff in here is optional. Then anything new pretty much pertains to anything, all the new stuff. For example, the lower gun deck on the galleon or something like that.
Okay.
And then this is a really fun one too. The campaigns is one we've had a lot of requests for. So this is a pretty simple, straightforward campaign that's all about building up your commander and or your kind of your personal character and building up your own leader and then his crew and all that stuff. And it's pretty fun. And then of course new scenarios and new events for different regions, right? So if you're playing, since we're covering more ground than just the Caribbean really here, you can have, there's some stuff for cold weather and temperate climates and tropical and stuff like that. So.
See, I quite like the idea of having new areas to game in because it means that people can build other than like Caribbean tables.
Right.
So you're not just having to stick pantries everywhere.
That's right. And it's fun to be able to play, you can set up some kind of like Canadian waters where there was a lot of pirating and privateering as well as New England. So you can do some really cool darker water and put some icebergs around if you want to. Lots of fun stuff like that. So.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Jump on through for me to the scenarios section because I'm very curious to hear about what new scenarios you guys have.
So the scenarios in here, right? Oh, I almost forgot about multiplayer games.
Ooh, what's this?
Multiplayer large battles. Just go to that real quick. We'll go back. We'll go to scenarios now, but this lets you play much grander scale games, which is always fun. Pretty sure the scenarios are after that. Just want to make sure. There we go. So new scenarios.
Okay.
Right?
So what do we got?
So we've got Raise, right? It's the first one here. This is basically you're burning down a town, right? It's always fun. All kinds of ways you could do that. And there's just like our old book, there's a land version, there's an amphibious version, and a sea version. Okay. And I really like these maps for the illustrations done on here. Our artist, Lillian Figueroa, she really did a good job with those.
Yeah. Now I have to wonder, how do you raise the sea?
Well, you're going to basically, obviously, you're burning a ship at that point.
Yeah. So some kind of Spanish treasure galleon?
Yeah. And it's been so long since I played it that I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head exactly what you're supposed to do. But let's say you get a strike point if you're the defender. If your ship is on fire.
Okay. And well played reading upside down.
That's right.
All right, next one.
All right, so then we have Escort, right? This one's pretty straightforward in all 3 versions. you've got a VIP. You got to get them out of there, right? So these are a lot more narrative based than our original ones, which are a little more kind of like pick up and play sorts.
Yeah. I like the idea of the amphibious one for that, because you're going from sea, transferring to land, and then trying to move on.
And we can show here, and then part of it is there's actually like a 3-pronged part of it. So you're on land, you've got to get to your longboat and then to your ship, and that's really fun to do amphibious for sure. Then of course there's rescue, and that's kind of similar, but there's more of you're trying to grab somebody and get them out. In the other one you kind of already have them, but it plays a little different in the way it's all deployed and stuff. Amphibious and sea versions of those, of course. And then we've got let's see, search and recover. So this is probably our least historical one. I'm sure something like this has happened at some point, but this is basically a treasure hunt, if you will. So there's going to be a bunch of objectives on the table, and you're searching through them and trying to find them. This one I find especially fun, although not very historical, but very fun at sea. At sea, just put a bunch of tokens, and then you gotta fish them up and check them and see if that's the thing you're looking for, which could feasibly happen. Shipwrecks, and you're trying to recover stuff floating around.
I've played Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's basically history at that point.
Yeah,
because you've played it in the past. So works for me. And then plunder. Where you're basically just robbing stuff from buildings or ships in the case. And then this one, the sea version is pretty fun because it's a shipwreck that you've got to race to and recover stuff from.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that pretty much covers the new scenarios.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to see some of them on the table.
Oh yeah, we will. That will be throughout the week. We're definitely gonna try to cover each one if we can.
Okay.
So.
Okay, you're on. We'll take that challenge. And now, faction-wise, who are some of the new people? What's sort of the history behind some of the new folks that are actually out and fighting in the Blood and Plunder universe now? Okay,
so let's go ahead and jump to the new ones, right? The new nationalities off the bat.
Oh yeah, sure.
The Dutch. So the Dutch are the newest European faction, right? They were kind of missing from the first one, I would say. We just didn't have, now is the time to bring them out, and we got to do them really nice. They're the maritime kind of superpower, not really superpower, but they've got like the most elite of the naval forces going around in the Caribbean, probably right now. So, or in the New World, really. This is their golden age, right? You got guys like the Reuter and Piet Hein and stuff like that. And those are some of their characters. The factions we have for them, we have privateers, we have Navy, we have Caribbean militia, and of course, North American militia for them as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of these have multiple choices for faction rules because since the Netherlands at the time was made up of different different states together, so you've got the ones that were present. You've got the Zealanders, so the guys from Zealand, and then you've got the West India Company. And you've got ships of horn for the Navy and stuff like that. So it gives there's a lot of different flavor choices for the Dutch.
So I'm guessing there's a bit more to bite into here if you want to go after it, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, well, there's a question. How do you guys actually decide which new factions to add in? Because, I mean, I assume everybody was here around the same amount of time, but you can't cover everybody in one swing.
Well, that's what you would think, but that's what we've done. That's just how this almost killed me. So I'll skip the natives now for the moment then and go into how we did that. So what we did is we did unaligned and peripheral powers, right? So what this is anybody who kind of spent any amount of time in the New World doing something.
Yeah.
We tried to include them to some degree here, and even some of the more significant ones, right? Like the Portuguese, since they were a little more isolated, we've kind of shoved them into this list. Also, for the most part, the Spanish models all work for them. So it's as well as some of the other ones that we have going. So one of the first, so we've got. Just to go over them real quick, we've got pirates.
Of course.
So an actual pirate faction, which is a little different from the Brethren of the Coast. The Brethren of the Coast still tried to, typically worked as privateers, cross the line into piracy sometimes. But in the later 17th century, you start to see the first real pirates showing up. They're just like, screw everybody. Yeah. We're going after you no matter what. Yeah. Didn't even pretend to have a commission or anything. Then we've got the Portuguese factions. Yes. We've got the Bandeirantes, who are kind of like later conquistadors for the Portuguese. Okay. And then we've got the Tercios and Militia for the Portuguese. And that'll cover Coast Guard as well. Yeah. Swedish Militia for the Swedish colonies in North America.
Oh, I didn't know there were Swedish colonies.
Yep, pretty short-lived, but they were there, and they did have some impact, and they actually are the reason you have log cabins in North America. Yeah, so a lot of these guys were Finnish, and they brought that kind of construction to North America, and that kind of stuck.
So, I see.
Yeah, so they were there, so we've got a list for them. And each of these lists does have at least one special character to go with it. So so we didn't try to leave them, we tried to give them as much as we could. We've got some Danish militia. Never really had any conflicts that I'm aware of, but they did have St. Thomas. So they did have a militia there, so there's a list for it. And then we've got the Brandenburg Privateers, which are Prussians, Brandenburg Prussians. And they did send some privateering fleets into the New World to go after the Spanish primarily.
Yeah.
Then we've got some of the old ones like Brethren of the Coast and Logwood Cutters. So there's a ton of, and then of course the Black Caribes, which are basically kind of pre-Maroons, if you will, in the 18th century faction. We'll get into actual Maroons, but these are the escaped African slaves that kind of integrated, and in some cases kind of almost formed their own groups with the Caribes, also known as the Kalinago now. And did that. And then of course we've got Scottish militia. There was some Scots in the Darien in central South America, and as well as in what's now South Carolina in the States. So we've done our best to cover it all.
Yeah, so you've made the melting pot.
So if there's a conflict happening in the New World in the 17th century, with the exception, the only thing I don't think we've really covered at all is Inuits. I don't think Inuits was something, but I don't know how much conflicts they were getting into, honestly.
I'm not seeing any Irishmen in there yet.
Well, there's Irishmen all mixed in. They just didn't have a distinct. But we have lots of Spanish Irishmen. There's lots of characters in there for that.
I gotcha.
So, yeah. So then we have the natives. So for the natives, a lot of historical games in the New World kind of gloss over the natives. They're just kind of like, here's Indians is kind of the way they present it, right?
Yeah, they're done as just like a generic faction.
Right. So, and I understand that because, man, there's a lot of variety and there's so many, like, I had more ambition with this when I started out, but there's just so much variety, it would have been impossible to cover it all. So we broke it down to some basic troop types that are pretty universal across the board. And then we broke down into a whole bunch of different groups as much as we could. Yeah. So the Kalinago, who are the Caribes, they're operating they're pretty aggressive guys in the Caribbean. They're just beating up the English and the French all over the place.
So basically, this is our land. Please leave.
Yeah, or not so much that. It's like, hey, they got good stuff. Let's go take it. Right, so they're pretty much pirates. So it is some of that too, of course. As well. Then you have the Darien, who are the Kuna. These guys often allied with the Buccaneers, and they resisted Spanish occupation until present day. For the most part, they're still kind of got a sovereign nation over there and stuff. It's pretty cool. But yeah, they're tough guys. Golden Island tribe, who was basically their character for King Golden Cap. It's a specific faction. Then we break it down into some other regions here. So you've got Caribbean and South American tribes.
Yes.
Right? And then that kind of breaks down into the Caribbean tribes and the South American tribes. Yeah. And that kind of then the Darien and Caribes fall into that. They're two of the more significant ones that are getting into a lot of action. So we focused on those, and the other ones get slightly more generic lists, but still enough to give them a distinct flavor. Yeah. Right? So like Caribbean tribes would be like Tainos and Arawaks and stuff like that.
So basically you have a very good selection to actually pull out the bits of this era that you want to actually explore and play with.
Exactly right. So we've got northern woodland tribes, southeastern woodland tribes. We've got Iroquois and Wabanaki and Westo and a bunch of stuff like that, as well as lots of characters. Yeah. Who all have, because all the recorded ones typically have some kind of European name given to them. So yeah. You could cover all kinds, and that's pretty much most of the factions. But it's pretty in-depth. Yeah. And over the next year or so, we're going to start doing some periodic releases to cover a lot of the models for all these things. And we're probably going to do some small crowdfunding things where on our website, where you're going to be able to pre-order. And then when we hit a certain number of pre-orders, we'll have the funding needed to make the mold and get the unit out.
I see. So you're doing a a homebrew critical mass kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. So
I have
we're gonna
discussed this with a few companies.
It's
a good idea.
We're gonna experiment with it and see how it goes. And if it proves popular, we'll just keep on doing them. I would love to see a monthly one.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing the critical mass funding because it means that people get exactly what they want, and the people who are jumping in on it, there's more of a reason for them to push friends to actually say, look, come on, this is cool. Come and join us. Come and play with us.
Yeah, and it's going to be, the goals will be pretty small. It's because we got to pay a sculptor.
Yeah,
and because these would probably be outside of our typical sculptor, although they will use his resources and stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be so we've got to pay a sculptor, make the mold, and there's enough. We've basically raised enough money just to get that done, then we'll do it. So. And you'll see some details about that pretty soon as we get it rolling. Right, but the first priority is just to get everything sorted in house first. Kickstarter's clear, good to go. So
all right. Well, the first thing to do then is ask everybody, what do you think of the idea of doing critical mass crowdfunding on this smaller platform from the guys at Blood and Plunder? I'm liking the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing. So that's some of what's in the book. I'm sure there's a ton more in there.
Oh, plenty more, yeah.
But I don't want to spoil it for everybody. So this is definitely something to check out if you're into your golden age of piracy stuff.
Right.
You've also been showing me some 3D renders.
That's right.
And, okay, now I'm not sure if I heard you right, so I'm going to let you explain what we're seeing here, okay?
Sure.
So I'll call up the first one here, and I'm seeing multi-part, but what's the material you're going for?
So this will be hard plastic. So these molds will be in...
Hard plastic?
Hard plastic, that's right. So hard plastic. Now, I want to make it clear that these won't replace our metal range. I know a lot of people really like our metal miniatures.
Yeah.
But these are basically in addition to it to give you some new cool options.
Yeah.
So what these guys are designed to be is these are golden age, early 18th century pirate sailors, right? They'll probably work as other things as well, and we'll probably get some crossover on them. But if you notice, a lot of these kits have lots of parts that are designed to be interchangeable. So you could really do a lot of really cool options. You're never going to have two guys looking exactly the same.
Yeah, this is something I discuss with people all the time, is whenever they're doing different things. Oh, look at that handsome gentleman.
Yeah, it looks like you a little bit, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh, I don't know. Can I pull off that mustache? What do you think, folks? That is a handsome mustache.
It is quite a handsome mustache,
but it's a discussion I've had with people many times now, is you have the option whenever you're doing plastics to either go dynamic, single pose, or modular, basically completely interchangeable. I like the idea of the interchangeable stuff for the piracy stuff because everybody's going to have, different kind of shirt, different weapons, even down to something like just different facial hair, or maybe a slightly older, musket or blunderbuss or whatever.
Of course. And there's going to be a lot of head varieties too that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah.
Like this, there's probably going to be at least a few African featured heads there.
I see. Yeah. So are these all Caucasian at the moment?
For the moment, yeah.
Okay.
So, because those will kind of transition into other kits as well. Because it's likely we'll do in plastics as well a set of like free Africans that'll work as militia or maroons or something like that.
I do like this idea, and it does let you swap and interchange, because even if you have some spare heads from the African set,
exactly,
you get a set of these, you can just put those African heads onto these, I'm guessing, yeah?
Yep. They're going to be fully interchangeable between kits. So maybe with some modification in some cases, but typically we're going to be able to swap.
Plastic's easy to convert.
Exactly, yeah. So, but we want to make it as easy as possible to kind of kit bash and do different things. So
very cool. All right, now there is one more image here. What am I seeing here?
All right, so this is the concept art for the first character we're working on for the next expansion, which is the 18th century expansion. And this, of course, is Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard.
Ah. Okay.
So that's, it's a pretty. We wanted to make sure to capture. We wanted to try to do a little bit of a different take.
He looks quite feral. I'm gonna say that there's a wildness to the appearance of him.
Yep, it's kind of what we wanted to go for, that kind of terrorizing personality that he had, and even if a lot of it's legend, it's I feel like this probably does a pretty good job of capturing the historical reality and a little bit of the legend at the same time. You know what I mean?
Well, it's very curious for me, is this would actually lead me to actually want to research the character more, being able to play him in game. Right. Because, you hear all the different stuff from the different sources because he's been featured in movies, in video games, in novels. But actually finding historical documentation on the guy, is it a big challenge?
To a degree, a lot of the early 18th century guys, the big source people use is a book called General History of the Murders and Robberies of the Pirates. It's a really long title, like that. But that we know is kind of embellished, right? It was kind of made. He tried to make all the characters look large enough because he was trying to sell books. He's not trying to make a concise history of exactly what happened to represent the facts. He's just trying to sell books to because it was a period book that was written and right after the pirates had kind of been wiped out for the most part. There's the stories of the matches tucked under the hat and all that is probably, which is in there, is probably not true.
Yeah,
but
he was probably still pretty bad dude.
Yeah, and then one of the biggest misconceptions of Blackbeard is that if you ever see the flag with the spear and the heart and the devil horns and all that, complete fabrication.
Really?
Yeah, there's historical sources that just say a flag with a death's head. So it's probably just a skull or maybe skull and bones or something like that. That's pretty much what he flew. So, yeah, unfortunately, people love the cool Blackbeard flag, but it's a fabrication. I forgot when it was sometime in the 1940s, I want to say, that they invented that just to sell some books. So.
Okay, and have you ever considered reaching out to maybe some of the famous places that he actually would have reaped and raided to actually see if they would have any documentation on what happened or any accounts?
I haven't personally, no, but Benderson Little, the historian we work with, he's got all kinds of stuff like that he's researched, and he's got access to all that. So we go through him. That would take me way too much time between designing and running the company. And I love doing that stuff though when I have time. So.
Yeah, but that would be a really, really intriguing thing to be able to do, and for you guys, it must be a joy whenever you have your historian coming in and saying, "Okay, guys, here's the latest discoveries from the past for you." Right. To feed into it.
Yeah, and they found the Queen Anne's Revenge not that long ago, which is great. Cause that was, they off the coast of North Carolina. And that's got all kinds of artifacts and stuff that gives us a lot of... And that's, which, by the way, one of the things, we're going to do a ship for that.
You're going to do the Queen Anne's Revenge?
So we're going to do a full-size frigate. We have the Light Frigate now, which is kind of like a mini frigate. But we're going to do a full one about, it'll be a pretty nice big model. And that'll... function as your Queen Anne's Revenge or any other Navy small frigate that would be used to hunt down pirates and stuff like that. So
that's very, very cool. Although I will say, anytime I see historical sites like that and seeing relics being brought up from them, I always find it incredibly haunting to know that someone, however many hundreds of years ago, maybe held that pistol, used that cup, wore those boots.
Exactly. It's really interesting.
It's intriguing, but it also kind of catches you in the heart every single time. Yeah. Or it does for me anyway.
Definitely for me. I think anybody who enjoys historical gaming or miniatures or history in general really has that effect for sure. Yeah.
All right, well, Mike, thank you very much. The week
pleasure.
is only just beginning, everybody. So this week, just a very quick rundown on our plans. So we've had our intro. We now know what's happening in the book. I would like us to sit down and maybe dive in to an army list for each of the new factions and then maybe get them on the table in a Let's Play, if you're up for it.
Yeah, sounds great to me. Let's do it.
All right, well, everybody, stay tuned, and hopefully you enjoy the week.
Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying this themed week. Make sure you don't miss any of it by checking out the playlist, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to ding our dong so you don't miss any of our videos. Also, keep your comments in for your chance to win.